How does a massive 244-foot steel freighter just vanish? Literally without a single trace. Imagine this for a second. A modern ship pushing through the icy, spitting snow of Lake Superior on a pitch-black November night. She's fully loaded, her lights are burning bright, and then nothing. Just an empty, freezing horizon.
If you know your maritime lore, you've definitely heard of the Flying Dutchman. You know, that legendary ghost ship doomed to sail the oceans forever, never making it back to port. Well, today, we're looking at how a very real, very sturdy Great Lakes freighter earned that exact chilling title and became an absolute legend. Welcome to This Explainer. Today, we're diving deep into the factual, incredibly suspenseful, and ultimately devastating history of a 1902 disappearance that still baffles historians to this day. We're talking about the ghost of Lake Superior itself, the SS Bannockburn. Part 1. A routine final voyage. The calm before the November storm. Now, the Bannockburn wasn't some fragile, aging boat. Actually, scratch that, she was a modern marvel for her time. According to official inquiry records from the Dominion Marine Association, she was a 9-year-old steel-hulled propeller freighter built over in England in 1893. Basically, a total workhorse running the Canadian Translake grain trade. So, in late November 1902, she leaves Fort William carrying a totally routine cargo of 85,000 bushels of wheat. At her helm, Captain George R. Wood, a seasoned 37-year-old mariner. The ship had survived a few minor groundings in the past, so there was absolutely no reason, none at all, to suspect this trip would be any different. But what really brings the human element of this tragedy into focus for us is this number right here, 16. That was the age of the youngest wheelsman on board, Arthur Callaghan, just 16 years old. And honestly, many of the 20 crewmen were just teenagers, between 17 and 20 years old, working an absolutely grueling job for good pay. They had their whole lives ahead of them when they sailed out onto that freezing lake.
Part 2. Vanishing into the mist. The encroaching dread on Lake Superior.
So the absolutely crucial point here is piecing together the timeline of that fateful day, November 21st. A localized, intense storm with 50-mile-per-hour gusts crashes down on the lake. Other vessels were out there fighting the exact same brutal weather. On the morning of the 21st, the SS Algonquin reported seeing the Bannockburn sealing well in heavy seas northeast of Caribou Island, though, visibility was pretty hazy. Later on, around 11 p.m., the passenger steamer Huron reported passing a ship whose distinct lights matched the Bannockburn, right in the middle of a blinding blizzard.
Okay, let's dive into this, because the terrifying suddenness of this mystery is just perfectly captured by Captain McMogg of the Algonquin. He stated, "I watched the vessel narrowly several times. When I looked a few minutes later, the vessel was gone." I mean, just think about that. 1 minute, a giant steel leviathan is pushing through 15-foot waves. The next, it's swallowed entirely by the mist, like a deadly magic trick.
Part 3. A trail of wreckage, the chilling aftermath.
After that terrible night, the Bannockburn never arrived at the Sioux Locks. By November 25th, debris was spotted. By November 30th, the ship was officially declared lost. But here is where the mystery deepens into just absolute dread. Historian Mark Bourrie noted in a 2004 monograph that a suppressed meteorological annex from the inquiry suggests the official lost date was assigned merely from the last entry in a shoreside payroll ledger, not from the evidence. And even more terrifying, 2 days after she was declared lost, a lighthouse keeper on Michipicoten Island logged a vessel matching her exact silhouette passing in heavy snow. That is a sighting that's temporally impossible under any accepted drift calculation. Just chillin'. And then, a single canvas life jacket washed ashore at Grand Marais. It was stenciled Bannockburn. But what makes this detail so haunting, and what really confirmed the rescuers' absolute worst fears, is that it had bloodstains on its straps. It was tied as if it had been secured to a body. This incredibly visceral, eerie sensory detail was the only confirmed piece of wreckage from the ship ever found.
Part 4. What happened that night? Unsolved theories in the dark. So what could take down a modern steel freighter so incredibly fast? Well, here are the primary suspects. Theory 1. She struck Caribou Island Reef in the dark. You see, the lighthouse there had actually been intentionally turned off for the winter just days earlier, on November 15th. Talk about terrible timing.
Theory 2, she suffered a sudden boiler explosion, which might actually explain why Captain McMaw saw her vanish so quickly. Theory 3, she lost steerage, fell into the trough of those massive waves, the cargo shifted, and she capsized. Or Theory 4, she hit the Superior Shoal, an underwater hazard that was completely uncharted at the time.
Now, what's really interesting here is one of the most compelling pieces of evidence we have. It came from a Kingston blacksmith named John Maloney, who had worked on the ship just a week prior. He testified, "I braced the rudder quadrant as the hub was split. The quadrant gave way and the vessel foundered. If that hastily repaired rudder failed in those 50-mile-per-hour winds, the Bannockburn would have been left helplessly adrift, completely at the mercy of the crashing sea."
Part 5. The Flying Dutchman Legacy, Myth versus Reality.
Because Lake Superior is so vast and isolated, this very factual tragedy quickly morphed into enduring folklore. Just think about the contrast here. On one hand, we have the myth, sensationalized stories of bloody oars with carved names and skeleton crews sailing eternally through the freezing mist. But on the other hand, we have the stark fact, a single bloody life preserver and minor debris lost to a brutal November storm. The ghost stories are undeniably fascinating, but the true takeaway here? It's the profound, tragic reality. 20 young men lost their lives in a terrifying battle against nature, and their resting place remains completely unknown.
And I mean completely unknown. Over the past 9 decades, there have been 11 major search expeditions. Even a comprehensive 2007 side-scan sonar survey conducted by the Great Lakes Shipwreck Historical Society found absolutely nothing. In waters whose average depth really should have preserved an identifiable hull, the Bannockburn remains perfectly hidden in the dark. Which leaves us with this final, chilling thought. On an inky black night, when the freezing lake meets the stormy sky, what truly lies hidden beneath the surface of Superior? Will we ever find the Bannockburn, or is she destined to remain Lake Superior's ghost forever?